Я снова приветствую вас, дорогие друзья, на нашем канале. Видео, которое я хочу сейчас вам показать, было прислано мне из Соединенных Штатов Америки. Оно было снято девушкой, хобби которой, по моему мнению, достаточно интересное. Она занимается изготовлением каких-то новых форм, симбиозных форм, слитых из металла, стекла и каких-то различных других веществ, названия которых я даже, скорее всего, и не знаю. Но дело не в этом. Дело не в ее хобби, хотя это тоже достаточно интересная вещь. Но чем заинтересовало меня это видео, это то, что в этом ролике американка рассказывает о опыте использования нашего водородного электролизного газогенератора S300. Мы достаточно много лет производим различные водородные газогенераторы и крайне не получаем обратную информацию от пользователей. А если мы и получаем такую информацию от тех, кто эксплуатирует наше оборудование, то, как правило, эта информация касается каких-то проблем, связанных с работой газогенераторов, каких-то поломок. Да, и это естественно, потому что любое оборудование имеет свойство ломаться. И мало кто нам рассказывает об опыте эксплуатации оборудования, о том, понравилось ли это оборудование, принесло ли пользу. Наверняка вы меня понимаете, как производителя, разработчика и производителя. Я очень хотел бы знать, приносит ли пользу и удовольствие наше оборудование, в которое вкладываем, не побоюсь этого слова, вкладываем душу. Так вот, сейчас я предлагаю посмотреть видеоролик, где я наконец-то получил действительно субъективное, естественно, мнение относительно нашего оборудования, но это достаточно красочная информация, достаточно эмоциональная по-своему, и меня это видео очень заинтересовало. Итак, предлагаю посмотреть. Оговорюсь, в процессе доставки оборудования в США, скажем прямо, его просто разбомбили. Заказчица получила газогенератор просто в ужасном состоянии, в разбитом. Как его кидали, как с ним обращались, одному Богу известно, но я видел, в каком состоянии оборудование пришло в США. Я сначала был крайне расстроен. Я думал, что запустить его не получится. Тем не менее, руки этой девушки и помощь ее мужа, товарища, друга, не знаю, неважно, какой-то парень присутствовал, помогал ей в ремонте. В общем, общими усилиями газогенератор удалось починить. И выглядит, конечно же, вы это увидите в ролике, выглядит он не очень хорошо, но он работает. Итак, давайте посмотрим видео.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're going to do a little video showing the operating instructions and a review for this awesome hydrogen torch that I bought. First step is we're going to have to mix up an electrolyte. So the torch that I bought is actually coming from Russia, from an amazing manufacturer that is really high quality, and it is worth every penny. Now I paid $9.15 total. I had to Western Union it. It was the only way that they were able at this moment to accept the payment. I had no problems with that whatsoever. The $9.15 in US dollars covered everything. It covered the cost of the torch, and It included a burner, a torch head, and it covered for the shipping. Also, I just want to note that the customer service from Severs is outstanding. They are there to help you every step of the way. And shipping from Europe to America, I live in California, so it took about 10 days from the moment I ordered to the moment I got it. And that's really fast. So yeah, I'm just whipping up an electrolyte. The manufacturer told me to never use sodium hydroxide, so I'm using what they recommended, which is potassium hydroxide flakes, and that's just 50 grams of potassium hydroxide mixed with 1 liter of distilled water. And you just want to mix it up until it is clear, and then it'll be ready to use. And make sure you do this outside because, yeah, caustic lye definitely has some nasty fumes sometimes. Yeah, so it looks like we're ready to rock and roll. And just have a look at this beautiful machine. Just look at the superior craftsmanship. This is a steel outer casing body.
Okay, so first we're going to start with the electrolyte.
I'm going to start by opening up the electrolyte. And get yourself a funnel. So they only have this machine available for 220 volts. This will not work on a 240 volt, so don't even try. So you're going to need to have a converter. Sadly, the converter I bought doesn't really work so good on my 20 amp breaker. It keeps tripping after every few minutes. It's probably just, it's not so much the converter's fault. It's actually a very well made converter. This ELC T5000, I recommend that you get bigger wattage over smaller wattage so that you can have the machine work for continuous use. And just try to make sure you have at least a 25 amp breaker or higher. For continuous use, the 1800 watt machine will keep tripping the breaker if it's on a converter. As you can see, I had to keep flipping mine just to make the video. Hopefully I'll be moving to a new house with better breakers soon. All right, so it's on. I got power. It'll say off, of course. You got to push the button to turn the load on. It'll show you the temperature, which the fan will automatically come on when it gets too hot, and it works really great. And you have only 2 settings here, is the water gauge and the timer for the automatic shut-off. To fill the electrolyte, you want to start by turning the machine on and setting it to the water setting. And that way you can see the gauge as you're filling it. And this is the easiest way that the manufacturer told me to fill the electrolyte so that you can tell exactly how much water is going in there. Naturally, you don't want to be too full or too low. That's it's probably pretty important. So right here you can't see, but I'm filling it. I'm pouring the electrolyte in and I'm watching the gauge and I'm waiting for it to register. There it goes. All right, it's all full. I actually had some in there already, so That's why I went so fast. You're going to put about 1 liter in there. And make sure you put the cap back on tightly. Next, we're going to fill up the hydrocarbon. And you'll want a different funnel for that, or at least wash and dry the other one. Don't want to be mixing fluids, of course. And here I've chosen a Zippo lighter fluid. The first fluid that I chose didn't work so well. It was a camp stove fluid, and it had additives in it that made it not burn as good. You want to make sure you find a hydrocarbon fluid that will burn very well. It must be highly combustible. I think the manufacturer said that if you rub it on your hands, it should just evaporate, or if you burn it on a non-flammable surface, it should leave nothing behind. This is a bottle of naphtha, I do believe. Naphtha is a hydrocarbon petrol fluid. And this is just going to mix with the HHO, the hydrogen oxygen gas, which is also called Brown's gas, which was invented by a man named Yul Brown, which he got patents for in the 1970s. But at any rate, Yul Brown believed that when you mixed a certain amount of hydrogen and oxygen together, a new substance was actually created. The gas that it creates is really superior for using as a torch. It makes a very hot flame that is hot enough to cut steel. So the hydrocarbon, you only need 50 milliliters, no more than that. So the way that the hydrogen gas is created is actually done via electrolysis inside the machine. All electrolysis inside an electrolyte will actually create hydrogen, oxygen, ozone, and chlorine gas. Another term for the creation of the hydrogen-oxygen gas is called water splitting. It's also referred to as a water torch because we're literally using water as the fuel. Okay, now it's time for my little burning experiment. I'm just going to do a little alchemy experiment here at the end of this video, and to demonstrate real quickly the flame of this beautiful torch. So here I'm just throwing in a little alchemical salt. I got myself some alchemical sulfur. It is an alchemical substance that I created myself. It's actually an old dried up bottle that I found in my garage that I had forgotten about, but I had made it in a previous experiment long ago. And I just tossed it in a bag and forgot about it, and it had leaked out and dried. And I thought, well, why let this go to waste? I might as well use it for something. So just like the Holy Trinity, alchemy has a Trinity concept always. So here I'm adding some pure silver as my alchemical mercury to make the Trinity whole. Alrighty, here's how we operate the machine. So that right there says stop in Russian, S-T-O-P. So this button, you just have to pull it out to get it to turn on, and then stop, you just push it forward until it clicks. So I've turned on the power button and I got the load going, and the gauge as you can see, can be turned up or down. The higher up it goes, the more power it will use. And if it's tripping your breaker like it's tripping mine because of the converter and the lack of amps, yeah, so definitely make sure you got enough power. You won't be able to enjoy this. So here I'm starting out by opening the red knob. Normally we just open the blue knob first and then light it and then fiddle with the red knob, but you can also just open the red knob and light it if you just want the HHO gas and none of the hydrocarbon. The flame differs just slightly a little bit. It's just that it lights a lot easier if you start with the hydrocarbon fuel first. If you do it the opposite way, it won't work so good. And sure enough, I managed to trip my breaker. I just want to point out this has absolutely nothing to do with the machine itself. This has to do with the lack of amps in my house. Yeah, now just have a look at that wonderful flame. Isn't it glorious? This flame is actually strong enough to burn right through the alumina crucible I'm using if I were able to keep it going long enough before the breaker tripped and, you know. So to drain the electrolyte, it's really easy. Just make sure you unscrew the lid to allow some air to release so that it will come right out. You can also tip the machine forward just a little to help it drain easier. The next machine up from this, the I believe S400, will actually have a little bit higher wattage, so you'll get a little bit more power for your flame. You'll have a better, stronger, hotter flame. And you'll also have an automatic drain, which I'm sure is great. So if you can afford it and you have the power, go for the bigger, better one. This is the least expensive model that Severs has. They actually make commercial size units that are big enough to burn entire wheelbarrows full of stuff. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's how you operate this amazing torch. And you won't find a better torch for the money, as far as I can tell. I looked. So go ahead and buy this torch. Don't fear buying it. You will not regret it. I will leave a link in the description for where you can get it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off my little experiment here with my MAP gas torch instead. I know it's sad, but I just got to get a bigger breaker for my torch to be able to use it continuously. Anyways, you can still enjoy the rest of the experiment here with my MAP gas. It does take a minute for it to work because it only gets 1950 degrees, but eventually I do end up with something very interesting looking at the end of the video. And one last thing, make sure you get yourself a pair of brazing glasses. That's green tinted glasses you can find in the welding section at the hardware store before you begin welding with your hydrogen torch. And that's because the flame does get so hot that it can cause some damage to your eyes. So make sure you have eye protection before you use this torch. Yeah, and this is my MAP gas torch with a rosebud burner, which helps make it a little hotter, but it's still taking a while. If I was using the HHO torch on this, it would just take minutes compared to what seems to be at least 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes worth of burning just to get the metal to do what I want it to. I believe here I've sprinkled some borax on top. And you know, I really love the concept of not having to buy gas with the hydrogen torch. Unlike the MAP gas, which these canisters, the yellow MAP gas canisters, they run out so fast and they're expensive. They're like $10 to $20 each, and yeah, they don't last very long and they just don't get hot enough. It's really frustrating using them. I know the flame looks really big and powerful, but it's really not that hot. Hey, look at this. Okay, so there's actually some red inside that silver. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the way gold looks when it's inside silver. When you're importing silver, if you don't have like the right amount, it has to be 25% gold to 75% silver. It can be very difficult to actually see it visually, but at first sometimes it can look a little red, and that was an interesting result right there. So I went ahead and fired it some more because I wanted to see if maybe it would turn gold.
Interesting. Alright, well, this could just be silver sulfate because of the egg yolk, but it's so hard to tell. I really feel like not, but because it turned red first.
It turned red first. So,
It turned red first, like that piece. Anyways. Turned red first, and then as I fired it more, it kind of got more golden. And I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. But I will put it in some nitric. I'll put this piece in some nitric and see what happens. Can't focus.
So you're probably wondering what was in the sulfur, the alchemical sulfur. And it was a substance that I created from mana that was made from 24 karat gold that I bought from Energold, which is a lab that makes mana from gold that's really, really high quality. What you didn't see, though, I didn't have footage, is that I actually switched over to a different substance that I put onto here because the first substance wasn't working. It just kind of volatilized and flew away. So you missed the part where I actually brought in a different substance, and some of that green slag you see there is actually left over from a piece of silver that had like something that contained iron in it before, but there was no iron really in the slag. It was just the color of it is green. The substance that I used to get this particular result actually was ormus that I derived from Sheila's jet. Yeah.